Ah, what a lovely night I've had here in the hotel. Shame I forgot my stuff. Guess I'll just run back in and get it. La, 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 la. Hello, is that Jean?
Of course it's me. It's 1995. We're the only two people in the world with mobile telephones.
Jean, why do you sound Australian?
Well, why do you sound Canadian?
Oh, never mind that. Jean, did you drive off in my company car?
Why would I do that?
Oh, no, Jean. I think my car just got pilfered.
God, this is too funny. Let me guess, you left the engine running while you went to get something?
Maybe?
Oh, Gerhard, you silly old fool. Did I steal your company car? Haha, that's a good one. No, I've got my own Ferrari Testarossa, nicely sealed away in my garage so that no one could possibly do anything to it while I'm not...
In 1995, the F1 field returned to the Autodromo Enzo e Dino Ferrari for the first time since the tragic weekend, which had claimed the lives of both Roland Ratzenberger and Ayrton Senna just 1 year earlier, and a rather somber mood hung in the air. The Tamburello and Villeneuve corners, where the tragedies had taken place, had both been reprofiled and slowed significantly by a brace of new chicanes, which had caught out several drivers during morning warm-up, but no serious accidents took place. Everyone in the paddock had their fingers crossed for a safe, clean race with no injuries. Pole position for this Grand Prix was taken by championship leader Michael Schumacher despite this crash during practice. Gerhard Berger missed out on pole by just 0.08 of a second, and the two Williamses were third and fourth. Schumacher's Benetton teammate Johnny Herbert lined up 8th on the grid, right ahead of Nigel Mansell, who had missed the first few rounds of the season due to not being able to fit in his car. That is a true story. When the race got underway in damp conditions, Schumacher got away in the lead, as the first few cars behind him remained mostly unshuffled, with the exception of Häkkinen getting up to 5th. Pretty much the entire field were on dry tyres except the first 5 plus Barrichello, and everyone made it through the first new chicane safely. Now watch Lacey in the background as he repasses Häkkinen for 5th, restoring the status quo. Yay, racing cars! At the end of the first lap, Schumacher and Berger had a convincing lead over the two Williamses, as Morbidelli dropped back with a rear left puncture and almost got overtaken by the medical car. Alas, it is no longer Morbin time. What you saw there was just one of many offs suffered by the drivers who took the risk of starting the race on dry tyres, and it was clear that the wet tyres were the ones to be on in the early stages. Indeed, by lap 5, the 6 drivers who had started on wets were running 1st through 6th as Barrichello had passed Häkkinen. However, the track was beginning to dry out and fall away from the leaders. Berger was the first to come in for slicks, although probably slightly too early in my opinion. Also, here's a close one. Ooh, Schumacher just avoiding a Tyrrell that had spun on the exit of Tozer. Could be worse though, he could be Johnny Herbert. Whoops. On lap 11, Michael Schumacher pitted for dry tyres and then immediately crashed at high speed. Michael himself claimed that it was a car problem, but whether it was or not didn't matter because the result was his second accident of the weekend. The man who had finished first at Imola in 94 was out first in 95. Gerhard Berger now led the race from Damon Hill, who had jumped his teammate Coulthard in the pits. Talking of the pits, there's McLaren struggling to get the fuel hose out of Häkkinen's car. Mika's race had started so strongly, but the fact that he hadn't been able to pass the leaders even when they made their stops for dry tyres just goes to show how much the drivers who started on slicks were struggling. Out of the race by this point was Schumacher with his accident, as well as Inouye, Verstappen, Montermini and Salo with various miscellaneous issues of their own. Back to the leaders, here's Hill putting a lap on Katayama, who was running 9th, but he had a slide and Katayama went straight back through again on the inside. Feisty. He wasn't the only backmarker getting in the way though. Watch what Luca Badoa did when the Williams drivers tried to pass him. Chop! That put Jean Alesi right onto the back of Coulthard and very nearly set up a move down the main straight. Interestingly enough, that wasn't the only time Badoa had got in the way of the leaders, as he'd done exactly the same thing to Gerhard Berger earlier on in the race, before having an off. Last time I covered a race from the 1995 season, Luca was awarded the prestigious Inouye Trophy, and in all honesty I think he's trying to speedrun his way to another one here. Oh, that was close. Way too close. At least Hill won't have to worry about Katayama anymore. Here's Ukyo spinning out of the race, and that's both Tyrrells out in quick succession. Ukyo, no! And off went Coulthard, spinning! The track was obviously still damp, but luckily David was able to keep his car from beaching in the gravel. If you're wondering why Alesi didn't come shooting through, it's because by this point he had made his second stop, as had his teammate Berger, meaning the Williams drivers were now first and second. It's worth mentioning Berger's stop because he actually stalled the engine, losing a hefty chunk of time as the team restarted it. Alesi was now the lead Ferrari, but the race was beginning to drift away from the Italians as Williams seemed to be going much longer into their second stint. Oh damn, that's Rubens Barrichello out from 5th place. The Jordan driver had benefited massively from starting on wet tyres at the circuit where he had his life-threatening crash just 1 year earlier, but it just wasn't to be. That then put Nigel Mansell up into 5th place in one of only 2 races that he'd drive at McLaren. Not bad for a 41-year-old. Now, you may have noticed that David Coulthard has a 10-second stop-go penalty, and that's for speeding in the pit lane. That gave second place to Alesi. Oh, but they nearly crashed! Jean clearly didn't know that he didn't need to pass David on track, and they were so lucky to get away with that one. Now, this is a thing of the past, isn't it? A proper stop-go. Look at that clock counting down. They don't do it like that anymore. Oh my goodness, that is Bertrand Gachot, and that is directly on the racing line. Yikes. Also out of the race by this point was Domenico Sciattarella in his Simtech. With Hakkinen having regained 5th, the battle for 6th had Irvine all over the back of Mansell. He went for a dummy into Tota and ran straight into the back of him. That's a front wing airmailed straight to the moon, and Mansell had a puncture. Nigel Mansell's chance of scoring points on his McLaren debut was gone. I tell you what, everyone always talks about Mansell's time at McLaren as a complete disaster, and it really was, but let's not forget that he was right behind Hakkinen and on course for 6th place before this happened. By the way, here's an update on pit stops. Both Williamses and Ferraris had made their last stop by this point, and the order was Hill, Alesi, Berger, Coulthard and Hakkinen. That car you saw leaving the pits ahead of Hill was Gianni Morbidelli, running a long way down the order, but to be honest, props to him for even starting this one. He had an emergency operation for appendicitis on the Tuesday of the race week, but he was cleared to race nonetheless. There's 3 things that are inevitable in this world: death, taxes, and Minardi's getting in the way. Anyway, after an uneventful final 15 laps, Damon Hill came through to win and take the lead of the championship due to Schumacher's crash. His winning margin in the end was 19 seconds, and the Italian fans had something to cheer about because the 2 Ferraris came home 2nd and 3rd, putting them joint 1st in the Constructors' Championship with Williams. Coulthard was 4th, followed by Hakkinen, and the last point was taken by Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who I don't think I've even mentioned yet. The rest of the top 10 who missed out on points were Herbert, Irvine, Parnis and Mansell. Also of note, the 240 cars finished, but neither of them were classified because they were both lapped a grand total of 7 times. Youch! The only other driver I haven't mentioned who failed to finish was Karl Wendlinger, who had mechanical problems not far from the end. Guys, before I give this race a score, I want to let you know that I have a Dailymotion account for all the videos that get taken down from my YouTube channel by the pesky FOM bots. Due to the high levels of parody, review and education my videos contain, I believe that all of them fall under fair use, but sadly this isn't always enough. On my Dailymotion, you can find the 1996 Monaco and Portuguese Grand Prix, as well as the 2008 Japanese Grand Prix, and more. I also now have a Twitch channel where I stream about once once a week and would really like to grow my audience. The links to both of these accounts are in the description of this video. Thank you. I gave the Grand Prix a 6.3 out of 10 overall, which was brought down by the relative lack of wheel-to-wheel racing. The +1 bonus point comes from the fact that everyone made it through the race unharmed, which is surely all that people really wanted to see from that weekend. I'll give the Driver of the Day award for Best Driver to Damon Hill, who led 2/3 of the race to score a big victory. I'll give the Inouye Trophy for Worst Driver to Johnny Herbert, who was rather slow and also rather anonymous, except for when he was spinning. Drive safely guys, and I'll see you next time.